And we are live. Welcome to this week's episode of the Funvee Tailgate presented by ThunderblogSports.com, a part of the Bullpen Cart podcast feed. I, of course, am the G-Man, Jordy Cannell. Joining me, as always, is my man, fresh off of a sad but I'm sure a lot of fun trip to Dallas, Matty D. What's up, buddy?
It was really fun, and it's a pretty cool house down there. I got to tell you.
Cool.
I got to tell you. But I'll leave it at that. I don't want to relive it anymore, if you will.
I don't want to rub any salt in your wounds, but our newest photographer, one Mr. Joe Solly, was a little upset that you guys didn't hang out a little bit. He thought he was getting big timed a little bit by the boss man.
Well, I wouldn't say I was the reason he was getting big timed, but we'll leave it at that. So, yeah.
I mean, he did have better seats than you, so
he did.
Maybe he was
we can talk. I don't know if he did or not, to be honest with you, but we'll review. I mean, I don't know. I go down and see players run onto the field by the glass. Did he?
That's true.
He basically high-fived Darren Sproles.
He was on the field like an hour and a half before the game.
That's true. That is true. It was pretty sweet. Yeah. I was noticing.
Yeah, it's a good time though. It looked like a good time. I'm bummed I missed it.
Yes. Well, I'd love to have you there. Maybe next time.
Did you get to go to any other games? I know I had heard the possibility that Stars were home, and you might be going. Did that happen?
No, they were there. We actually saw James Harden in the lobby of our hotel.
Oh.
Yeah, he walked by, saw the beard and everything. Swear to God, true story. Pretty amazing. But no, we didn't go. We had some other activities we were going to partake in, if you will. So I'll be upfront though. It's pretty exhausting anyway of a trip. So another game may not have been.
Did you come right back Sunday night, or did you spend Sunday there?
Flew back Monday. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So, but still, like I said, very, very fantastic time. And it is an incredible house that Jerry built down there. I got to tell you.
I want to know what his Madden games look like on that screen.
Oh God, I couldn't even imagine. And let me tell you, the screen is as good as advertised, without a doubt.
Really?
Oh, it was amazing. Yep, absolutely incredible.
How did that one punt that went off it look?
That's the thing. So, by the way, it hit it kind of at the apex, if you will. It's a weird. By the way, every punt you just think is going to go right into it. Like it soars right up there, and you're like, "Ooh, is it going to get it?" So interesting there.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. But I was kind of hoping it would go in and come out without hitting anything, but it definitely. And they didn't even mention it, which was weird.
Like at the stadium, if it hit it or not? Because Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were like, "Oh, that hit it. That definitely hit it." Troy Aikman's going all ape shit.
Yeah, it was weird because we really could see that it hit it. Like it was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll see what happens. But yeah, it was definitely cool though in that regard. I got to tell you.
Yeah, and sadly, it seems that the Eagles season's effectively over.
With the news about our quarterback, which we can get into, I would agree. It's
we'll just jump into it now before we quickly do the first week of bowl season preview. Carson Wentz was announced today, has a back injury, will not be playing Sunday against the Rams. And it seems like he might be out for the rest of the season, but I guess the Eagles wanted to try to hold on as much as it could. I know you and I talked about this a little bit offline, but it's at least good to know that there was something going on because there was something off the last couple of weeks with Carson. So at least we have an idea that, maybe that was a part of it. Cause a lot of the throws in the Dallas game, even against the Redskins the week before, were not that great.
Yeah. I would also tell you this, it'll be interesting to see how the NFL handles this because there was no indication of this injury on the injury reports. It's very Bill Belichick thing, if you will.
Is that do you get fined if you don't report somebody as questionable or probable or any of that sort of stuff?
Fined and possibly even more. So because if they have to do something. Well, if they don't, they don't figure it out. It could be a big problem if people are just hiding injuries. And so it'll be interesting to see if the NFL can figure that out.
Yeah,
it would explain the problem there, especially with the high throws, I think, as well, or not wanting to take hits, or maybe not running as much if it was hurting.
Yeah, let's get him Tiger's doctor. Get him a nice fusion surgery.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, hey, look, here's the thing. He's not. If he's really injured and he needs some time, then he should take some time.
Get him as much time as he needs.
Yeah, no time no reason to dive back in, if you will.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I hope he'll take a little bit of time in that regard.
Yeah, because even if, say, Nick Foles pulls a Nick Foles again and Carson's ready by the playoffs, like, they're not going to play the Saints in the first round, but you eventually have to play either the Saints or the Rams. And you already saw how it went in New Orleans. And, I mean, he might have been hurt then. We don't know. But, both of those teams are just wagons. There's so many other injuries that you might as well drop back and punt the season.
Right.
I mean, it's sad to say, and you want to be competitive and everything, but at the same time, like, is it the worst thing in the world? Not really. Just regroup and be fully healthy next year. Because, I mean, it was blatantly the Cowboys took advantage of the secondary just being completely banged up with Amari Cooper. Even with Cole, I don't know if Cole Beasley got too much action, but you could just tell that they were moving around a ton. And it was, aside from really the one pick in the end zone by Rasul Douglas, where Dak Prescott, I don't know if you guys could see it on the field, he was staring right at Amari Cooper the entire time. That as soon as Rasul Douglas took a turn back, he just completely cut. Like, it was almost bang, bang when they showed the replay. He looked and then took off.
Yeah, and honestly, he made a great play on the last one as well.
Oh, yeah. But aside from that, I mean, they were just picking apart every little bit of it.
It's definitely that dink and dime action. And that's really what you can get us with. It doesn't allow a pass rush to engage, and you can beat up on under talented I guess that's not the right word, but lesser talented corners. That's basically what they did all game, and it was a great game plan. But then again, we were still in position to win. I don't want to get started on the refereeing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We don't need to. I mean, it's been said a million times in the last 3 days. We're recording this Wednesday night, if you couldn't tell, if you're not listening to it on Thursday. But Eagles, we can talk about the Eagles another time. Let's get right into the college section of this week's pod. Not a ton, because all we really have had in the last week, Army beat Navy. Kyler Murray won the Heisman, which you and I both were in agreement for before that happened. So good for Kyler. And we have the start of bowl season. Not the most glamorous bowls this week. I'm going to write a full preview and picks and all that. So look out for that on Friday. But we still got some good ones in there, Matt. What are your thoughts on the slate for the first week of bowls?
Yeah, I mean, well, a couple things. Finally, it's a weird little lull. Obviously we had the awards, which we'll touch on a little bit later. But the first one coming at us hot and heavy on Saturday. I think the first one, I'm actually got to tell you, that Utah State North Texas game in the New Mexico Bowl, those are two better teams than you realize playing in that bowl. Utah State was ranked for a while. North Texas actually was the team that did the guy caught the fake he didn't fair catch and ran it back for a touchdown, which was a wild game and a huge win over. I know they're very down and out, but Arkansas, they smoked Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and by the way, their coach Seth Luttrell was offered at Kansas State, but he said no, he's not leaving.
Staying with the Mean Green.
Yeah, he's very up and coming, if you will, for that.
Good for him.
For that team. So quite a program he's built in North Texas. Going up against, like I mentioned, a fantastic Utah State team.
Yeah.
So
Mason Fine, North Texas quarterback, almost 4,000 yards in the year.
Yeah.
Over under set at 68.5. I mean, that's begging you to just take it.
Right. Now, by the way, Utah State lost week 1 to Michigan State by a touchdown.
Yes.
And then lost last game of the year to Boise State, which always hurts. Also, their coach is Gary Anderson, who left for Wisconsin, then spent some time with Oregon State. That's a big name coach in the coaching ranks as well. So a lot more star power in that opening bowl than maybe you realize there.
Okay. All right. It's good to know.
Definitely something if you can catch to pay attention.
Yeah. The one that's going to be probably flip over to see the start at halftime of the New Mexico Bowl and then flip over to see the very end when the New Mexico Bowl ends is the Las Vegas Bowl between Arizona State and Fresno State. Fresno State has had a pretty solid year. We've talked about them a little bit. They are ranked currently. It's the only ranked team on the first week slate. But they're going up against Arizona State, the team with Herm Edwards, head coach. And, this could be an exciting game. This is actually the second highest, or the third highest, over-under of the week at 54 points, tied with San Diego State, Ohio. I know Fresno State can pour the points on, but Arizona State likes to trap their opponents. So this is actually a really intriguing matchup, I think, Matt.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the only negative is that N'Keal Harry, Arizona State's excellent, probably first-round, maybe first-round wide receiver, has decided to skip the bowl game and enter the draft, which is a shame. He is as explosive as it got in college football. And so that is certainly, to me at least, somewhat of a bummer that we will not get to see him.
Yeah.
But I would agree. I think this is a very interesting game as well. I think for Herm Edwards, this is a huge game for Herm Edwards' squad, as they want to make a name for themselves as he kind of establishes in year one. So a win here would definitely put them, to me, on the right track.
Good for them. Yeah, I mean, it'd be really good for them.
Yeah.
Come in at a time where, like, we talked a little bit about USC last week with bringing on Cliff Kingsbury, but a time where they could really strike. Well, Cliff Kingsbury and USC kind of are in a transition period as well. If you can kind of beat them to the punch, you might have a year or two of establishing dominance before USC and the boatloads of money that they have in terms of alumni and boosters start getting their hands on the program there. So you're absolutely right. An opportunity to make a name for themselves and really get after it.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. I mean, and it's kind of a bummer we had talked a little bit about how we thought Fresno State actually had a chance to make it to a New Year's Six bowl if UCF, we thought they were going to lose to Memphis, which they ended up not doing. They're an up and definitely, and they're certainly, to me at least, an up and coming program. Jeff Tedford, the old Cal coach there in his second year, doing some big things. So it's also his alma mater, by the way. Tedford went to Fresno State. So they're relevant as a potential and future power, if you will, kind of moving forward with the Boise States and the UCFs in that mid-major realm. And I know we're going to bring it up. If they add additional teams to the college football playoff, they're the kind of team that you wouldn't want to face if you're a major conference player.
First things first. Came in here and wants to walk away.
You there, Jordy?
And do so knowing they're the best of us. It's got to be now. There is no ground support. The injuries we sustain, we're walking out with. Make no mistake about it. You guys need to own the fact that we do not have the flag on our shoulders. You cannot go back to your normal life after tonight.
Everything we've done for the last 17 years, with nothing to show for it. You've been shot 5 times for your country. You can't even afford to send your kids to college. If we had accomplished half the things that we've accomplished in any other profession, we'd be set for life. I'm your masters of war. The question is, do we finally get to use our skills for our own benefit? We're going to get Gabriel Martin Lorea. He's got over $75 million in cash.
If we're not gone forever after you make your move, we are dead.
We need to
All right, I'm back.
hunt quickly. You cannot think they will find us.
All right there?
Yeah.
All right. You just heard some song.
Oh, no, I was putting music on so you could hear me when I came back on.
Yeah, I got dropped out of the call.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I heard you talking about the end of that bowl game, and I heard you start going in and out. So I just stopped talking. And
I wrapped it up, so I don't know. Basically talked about how Fresno State would be a problem moving forward with, you know, if they expand to 8, but I didn't really go any deeper than that.
Yeah,
So,
I heard that, and then I just stopped. I heard you started getting choppy, so I just shut myself up.
gotcha.
What? So, do you want me to jump in and just quickly say like, oh, that's a really good point there, and then say, oh, and speaking of expanding, did you see this?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, perfect.
All right, cool. I'm gonna pee again quickly, and then we'll
All
go.
right, do you think? Do you think?
All right. Left, right. Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Yeah, that's a really good point. And speaking of expansion, did you see, by the way, that an anonymous tipster had said, don't be surprised if you start hearing talks of expanding to 8?
Yeah. I mean, I heard it. We talked about it a lot. And my feelings are better off at 6, but
Yeah.
it's interesting. It would certainly rev bowl season up more. And I think, by the way, it would fight against the superstar college players to some extent. It's not widespread, but you're seeing more and more college players opt out of bowl games.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on that? Because we heard Will Greer most notably say he's going to skip the bowl game.
Will Greer's definitely surprised me more than a lot, because he's not a consensus. He's not the top quarterback, and a really good showcase would help his cause.
Mm-hmm.
He's a senior. He's been around. He seems to have a lot of love. I know it was a transfer from Florida, but a lot of love for West Virginia. As a fan, I hate it, but as a realist, I completely understand why. In particular, a running back like a Christian McCaffrey who did it, or Leonard Fournette, would decide to skip simply because their bodies are already so beat up as it is. Adding an additional game of tread when instead you could be healing up from nicks and bruises and getting better for the combine and all that off season. I understand it as a realist, and I got to be honest, I'd probably tell my kid to skip a bowl game if he thought it was in his best interest. Obviously, I wouldn't force anybody to do it, but that also being said, I also got to be concerned: are there forces in their ears that just want a payday? And that's what you never. But once again, nobody playing in the championship game is skipping, right?
No,
like it's only the players who can't, who aren't playing in a big time game who are backing out. Anybody playing in a New Year's Six, who's not already dinged up. The other thing I would tell you is this: if you're like a Rashawn Gary, Michigan lineman, who's going to be a top 10 pick, they think he's been dinged up with a shoulder injury all season. I get that a lot more than I do a guy skipping who doesn't have an injury. But once again, you got to do what's best for you in your future. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a really good point. Yeah, and you got to think, they're going to get paid, especially if you're in I would say like a top 3 round, and you're going to get that kind of money. You don't want to mess up that kind of chance, because that's a lot of money you're going to miss out for an exhibition game.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and that might, like I said, that might be a trigger here a little bit, as we kind of go down that route, because why tune into some of these bowl games? What's really the positive? Well, if you add 8, it's just like you tune into every March Madness game. One plays 16, you're tuning in, and all the way through. In fact, I don't even know the ratings, but I would argue that the first weekend might be the highest rated weekend in March Madness. And it doesn't matter. You're watching all these random teams, play.
Yeah.
I think the NCAA football side of it sees that and is like, well, maybe we can do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think probably the purist is thinking like, oh, well, when would you play the games? Are you still going to do the semis around New Year's? And would you have the quarterfinals between Christmas? You couldn't have it between Christmas and New Year's. It had to be before Christmas. Like, fine by me. I'm still going to tune into some random fucking 1 versus 8 game on December 23rd. Assuming it's not going up against the NFL, which college football already does do that anyway. Notice there's nothing on Thursday night or next week. Or no, there is. Are they done with Thursday night football? But there's nothing. Or there's the last bowl game. There's no bowl game, I should say, that starts at 7 p.m. And the bowl game going up against the Browns Broncos game is Middle Tennessee versus Appalachian State in New Orleans. And unless you went to one of those schools, you're probably watching the NFL there. But nothing on Monday. There's Monday Night Football. Nothing on Sunday, obviously. I think college football has something on their hands that they could potentially get rid of this whole, you have a month off in between games. And who knows? I mean, the 8-9 discussion becomes the new 4-5, or if it goes to 6, the 6-7, and you're always going to have that. You have that with college basketball anyway. And I know we've made these points a billion times, but it's just worth noting.
No, I definitely agree. What I would tell you as well. I mean, I thought this year was a great example. I really thought 6 teams deserved the opportunity. I didn't think 7 and 8, Michigan and UCF, truly deserved an opportunity. I guess you make a little bit of an argument for UCF, but as a huge Michigan fan, I thought they for no reason should have been involved in that. So
for certain.
And once again,
I think the rankings would have been different if it was if it was 8 teams.
Yeah, and by the way, that's kind of a shame. And at some point, they'll probably start putting, the Pac-12 champion gets in. The Big 12, they'll give the champion, every champion will get in. And then they'll do a couple wild cards, and then they'll do a mid-major to satisfy that. I don't think
they do AQs just because of the fact that you might run into a situation like if Northwestern had beaten Ohio State, like they weren't going to put Northwestern in. And
no, of course
granted,
not.
It'd be really funny to see that, have Northwestern in or have fucking Pitt in. Yeah. But it would be a bad product, and then it really dampens out this point of having a random Thursday night before Christmas or whatever it ends up being quarterfinal game, and you're thinking like, what the hell? Like, we're like Lehigh is a great example. They were 5-6 last year, and they got into the FCS tournament, and they got the doors blown off of them by whoever was the highest team that didn't get a bye, the 9 seed of the FCS tournament.
Right. Yeah, and the other thing I would tell you too is we just talked about how it might mitigate against players leaving, but if all of a sudden you're going to tell a Rashawn Gary, hey, yeah, we're going to play in a playoff game with the 7th seed, so we're going to play in 3 to 4 playoff games. Well, all of a sudden, now you're putting more wear and tear on the college athlete who's trying to go pro. Yeah. So my other concern,
I've read on a couple.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I read on a couple that if they were to expand, definitely if they were to expand to 16, but even if they expand to 8, they might just get rid of conference championship games altogether.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
to reduce a game. That might be the compromise.
Okay. My only problem with that is, so say you're Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't get to play Alabama in the regular season this year. Now, I know they came in as a 1-loss team, but theoretically, if they had gone undefeated, they would never play Alabama. They would never have. Now, they would be in probably anyway, but they may not get the 1 seed. And if they decide to buy it or do some home game situation, like, to me, that's my only concern with them getting rid of the conference championship games is that you don't necessarily, because of the way the conference is set up, you don't play everyone every year.
Yeah, it would be a really interesting thought on where, like 5 years ago when we were graduating from college, is the year the Big East fell apart, mainly because of football. And you thought, are we going to get 4 mega conferences where each division's basically its own conference and you play everybody? And now with all these different thoughts, because the Big Ten's talking about getting rid of the conference championship game getting rid of divisions. So the conference championship game this year would have been a rematch of Michigan, Ohio State, for instance.
Right.
And it would be really interesting if something like that were to happen and see how conferences went, because it wouldn't surprise me to see some teams either like in the American and the ACC break off and form their own conference so they can do something like what the Big 12 does, where it's 10 teams, you play a 9-game conference schedule and do something like that and try to make a name for yourself that way. Because it'd be really intriguing to see how this actually affects the landscape of college football. And I think that's something that maybe it builds towards, maybe not, maybe that's too extreme, but who knows in that case.
Yeah. No, and that's definitely one of my concerns, if you will.
Yeah.
And so I mean, figuring it out, but yeah, I do think that's tough to.
Yeah. We can talk about it all on a different podcast. I just saw this pop up today, and I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
But I thought it was thought it was worth bringing up because it popped up today.
Mhm.
But anything else on college before we jump over to the NFL? Because I know we got a bunch we want to talk about and not a ton of time to go over it.
There's some other bowls. We'll catch some of them on our pod next week.
Yeah.
But really, to me, those are the big ones. All the bowls you're seeing here. I do want to give a shout out. UAB
Yes.
playing in the.
How about them? Second year back with football.
Yeah, second year back, 10-3. I believe they were even ranked at some point this year.
Mhm.
What a great season for them. They unfortunately lose late, but they went ahead and they won. They lost to Middle Tennessee State in the last game of the season, and then they beat Middle Tennessee State in the last game of the year, partially because with a minute and 12 left in the game, they were punting. UAB was punting, and Middle Tennessee State had 12 men on the field in their punt formation.
Oh, wow.
And they got an automatic first down, and the game was over. But still amazing season for UAB. How awesome is it they're back? You love to see it. And I hope they can continue the success after losing the program for a few years there. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's a really good point. And for those that don't know what Matt was alluding to by losing the program, it was a lack of state funding that the University of Alabama at Birmingham had to cancel the program for 2 years. It was controversial. It was really emotional. If you remember that from 2015.
I do. A lot of anger.
Or 2015 season, and they missed, I think, just one season. They missed only 16.
Yeah.
And they brought the team back. There were some people who didn't even transfer. They just stayed at UAB because they're from the state of Alabama and they wanted to play there. So they said some of those guys back, but it was a very, good for them and bringing everything back to where they were. Cause they were a program with some prominence when they went out of business. Quite literally they had lack of funding, but really great for them. You hear that every once in a while. Like, remember LSU was one that was rumored that this might affect them because not Kansas. I have the Thursday Night Football matchup in front of me, so it's fucking up my state names. Louisiana was talking about potentially having some sort of budget crisis and football might get cut from Louisiana State University. But, good for them.
Yeah,
let's jump.
I also want to note a hometown team that's literally just becoming a Power 5 coaching pipeline is Temple.
Yes.
So Jeff Collins leaves for Georgia Tech. Obviously, Matt Rule, we saw go to Baylor and have some success even with the sanctions down there. Steve Dazio up the edge on the extension through 2022 at Boston College, and Al Golden before him, who's had maybe not as much success, but regardless, last 4 coaches all moving on. So good for Temple. It's hard for Temple, and they, by the way, they are basically closing in on naming the Miami Hurricanes defensive coordinator Manny Diaz as new head coach, but. Good for Temple in the regard that they're bringing in a lot of these coaches. I just hope they can continue to build off that success and don't fall off the wagon, if you will, as they continue to go through a coaching carousel, which almost seems on a daily basis, yearly basis, I guess I'll say. I also go ahead and I'm going to cut you off there.
What happened?
No. I didn't. I thought I cut you off. Anyway,
no, you're good.
I also wanted to mention that, I guess maybe a slight upset that Kyler Murray won the Heisman over Tua. Maybe.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'd read all the stat comparisons. If you took away the fourth quarter for Kyler, it was really similar. My old boss at ESPN Radio even wrote in his there where Tua didn't step up. I guess he was one of the guys. I think apparently I didn't realize this. I heard this on a podcast that some voters vote before championship weekend and some don't. I guess he was one that got to vote after, and Tua didn't impress him a ton, and obviously got hurt against Georgia, but in that game and didn't step up. But I thought he just I'm all tongues today. I thought Kyler just looked a lot better than Tua, just in general.
Okay.
I know Tua obviously had the great playoff run. He didn't have to play fourth quarters because he'd been so good. Alabama was covering overs before halftime at times. They're covering the spread before the first quarter ended. But still, I mean, Kyler looks great. He has good intangibles for college football. I think he's making the right decision going to baseball because he's so short. I just think he wouldn't last in the NFL and he'd get probably pretty banged up. And the Oakland Athletics got themselves a great athlete on their hands.
No, I certainly agree there. I would say this too. I think that championship game hurt too a lot because Jalen Hurts came in against a great Georgia defense and won them the game. And this is the Heisman Trophy. You know, it's not the MVP. It's the best player in college football. But all of a sudden, you know, if you take Kyler out of Oklahoma, are they even close? And my answer to you is no. He had to do a lot more. He basically had to be perfect every week. While Tua could be perfect, Kyler had to be perfect because of that defense being so bad.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? One of the two is going to get the last laugh, and we'll talk about it. But one of the two will get the last laugh. And,
yeah, I probably agree with you there.
Yeah,
we will have time to cover that. Let's move on to the NFL, though. Week 15 is what we have, and it's really sad to say week 15, man. I'm bummed that we're almost at the end of the regular season. But we get not only Thursday night football, but we also get Saturday football. We're getting to that point where we get 4 NFL days, and thankfully, as of most Thursday night football matchups, it's a great matchup on Thursday night, and Saturday has some awesome ramifications as well.
Well, it's not just a great matchup on Thursday.
Oh,
it is a next level matchup. And by the way, for everyone who has been all about the Chiefs, as I have been, they've made me a believer. They've continued to late in the season. This game is arguably, you could argue this game is for the division.
It is. Absolutely.
And the only positive to that being if the Chiefs lose against a really, really good Chargers team. By the way, the Chiefs have to play at the Seahawks next week. So theoretically, they could win this game and still be in trouble. But it would be only positives you get to see another week of Mahomes if they don't get a bye. The Chargers, though, I think it's not a lock whoever wins this because the Chargers go at the Chiefs this week, then the Ravens and at Broncos. That's a hard finishing slate. But man,
if the Chiefs win, they'd be 2-0 against the Chargers, so they easily have head-to-head. They'd really have to. I think they'd have to go 0-2,
and they're playing the Raiders the last week of the season. No,
they might seal it up though, Matt, because they'd be 12-2, and the Chargers would be 10-4.
No, they would seal up the division.
Yeah, if they win, the Chiefs win.
Technically, they wouldn't seal up the conference because the Patriots.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying now.
And I see what you're saying. But to your point though, yes, being the number 1 seed and not having to go into Foxborough was very important. But what's really important is the first round bye.
Yeah. It's more important too because the Patriots have not been very good on the road at times. At times, I should clear that up. But remember, a couple of years ago, they went to Denver, couldn't get it done in the AFC Championship there.
That's
true.
It
does matter if New England is at Foxborough or not.
Oh, so, I definitely would agree. I definitely would agree with that. And you don't want to play the Chiefs in Arrowhead in December either. In this case, maybe January. But still, now I agree that. But once again, to me, the two teams playing on Thursday night, one will have a bye.
Mm-hmm.
And then will come the big debate of, well, the Chargers are 10-3. They're second in the conference. Why don't they get a bye as well? We don't have enough time for that argument today, but interesting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The playoff implications for it. The Kansas City Chiefs clinched the division with a win and a first round bye.
Right.
If they win and New England loses on Sunday, they get home field advantage. The Chargers, on the flip side, if they win, they lock up the 5th seed at least. Obviously, the division would still be up for grabs. But they also, if they don't win, if Miami and either Pittsburgh or Baltimore loses, or both Tennessee and Indianapolis and one of Pittsburgh, Baltimore, or Miami lose, then they would lock it up. So the Chargers could still be in the playoffs by weekend's end.
Yeah, and I think everyone can pretty much agree that we're going to see both those teams in the postseason, which is why it's so fun. They're having this battle, if you will. So yeah, great game Thursday though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fantastic game.
I'm trying to think of how it would be possible. I guess if they're the 5 seed, then they'd have to beat the 4 seed, and the 3 seed would have to win for them to play. Assuming the Chargers are the 5 and the Chiefs are I guess they'd have to win, and the 6 seed would have to win for them to play the Chiefs in the second round. But this could be an AFC Championship preview, if not.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, of course. I couldn't agree with that more.
Yeah.
And also, it's why that while the Patriots are still pretty much a mortal lock for the playoffs, even though I know the Dolphins are close, it still hurts them with that miracle win by the Dolphins last week because suddenly they don't have the ability to. The first overall seed is probably definitely out of their grasp now, and they're still battling now with the Texans pretty heavily for that bye, that second seed in the AFC because of their loss.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? The Texans, who they play the Eagles next week. They play Dallas this week.
They do.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm sorry. No, is them or the Colts who play Dallas this week?
The Colts play Dallas. Oh, they play the Texans play the Jets this week.
Yeah.
Jets, Eagles, Jaguars. We already went over how the Eagles are basically phoning it in at this point. The other two teams have been phoning it in for a couple of weeks now.
Right.
And if the Texans could be 12-4 by the season's end.
And that's definitely a concern that you got to have if you're the Patriots, which is why that loss hurt so much last week, even though obviously it was a little fluky. Patriots finished with at the Steelers, who need the game so much more than the Patriots. Now, they finished with Bills and Jets. So you're theoretically thinking a 2-1 at worst finish, and there's definitely still in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But they're playing a desperate Steelers team this weekend in Pittsburgh. So
let's talk about this game, about the Steelers, this game and the Steelers, because I don't know what to think of the Pittsburgh Steelers anymore, Matt.
Well, I think a couple things. I'm sure Le'Veon Bell is laughing somewhere a little bit, which is
absolutely. Has to be.
Yeah. They've just been kind of this way all year. They
looked great though, basically up until that Jaguars game that they still pulled out, but they looked really good.
Yeah.
The week before they scored 52 points. They scored 41 on the Falcons. I mean now that doesn't look that great, but still.
Yep. No, I think this past game was probably the worst, one of the worst losses they have to have had all year, I think, without a doubt. Obviously, the tie against the Browns still hurts. I think Roethlisberger is a little injured, as he normally is at this time around the year, because he takes a lot of those hits.
Yep.
They don't have a ton of run game in particular. By the way, Samuels, their fill-in, he was a tight end in college.
I did not know that.
He was kind of a multi-positional fullback, tight end, wide receiver, running back. So he wasn't a pure running back. Now, he slimmed down a ton, and he made the squad, but they really don't have a lot left right now. And they struggle, too, with their middle linebackers in coverage and running in the run game as well. So they just have some injury issues. It's wild, though, because you watch their offensive weapons run around like Juju and Antonio Brown, and you're like, wow, how are they bad? How do they lose games?
Yeah.
We'll see. And by the way, they honest to God, you mentioned this with the Browns, they go Patriots, and then they go visit the Saints.
Yeah.
End the season with the Bengals, but there's an obvious 1-2 finish. And I think that knocks them out of the playoffs.
I think so too. So let's look at the AFC North. I have said to you that I have already put in my Eagles. I'm still root for them. I'm still going to drink beers and watch every game and be excited. But I'm already lowering my expectations for them. And I'm getting heavily emotionally invested in the Cleveland Browns.
Well, they're right there.
The Browns are a game and a half right now behind the Steelers. No, they're 2 games back. Excuse me. They're a game and a half behind the Ravens. They're 2 games back behind the Steelers. Let's look at the Browns first. The Browns schedule coming in Saturday night against the Broncos in Denver. So a tough game. Versus the Bengals. Very winnable. Then they finish at the Ravens. The Ravens on the flip side play the Bucs this weekend at home. Then they go to the Chargers. And then they face the Browns in the last week of the season. The Ravens, you figure, probably go 1-1. If the Browns go 2-0, they're only a half game behind the Ravens, and that makes that game mean a lot. And the Steelers would have to play the Bengals. Granted, it's the Bengals, but that makes Week 17 in the AFC North so intriguing. And now they play all the games at the same time within your division, so you don't sit anybody and you actually have to play it. That makes that 1 o'clock slate, at least for 2 games.
Yeah.
So important.
Yep, I agree. So, by the way, they need the Steelers to lose.
Yes, they need the first and foremost. The Steelers need to lose because they went 0-1-1 against them.
Right. So Steelers lose, they have a chance. Steelers win, they're in trouble. By the way, if the Steelers
it effectively eliminates them.
Yeah, the Steelers, the Colts, and the Titans all win this weekend, they are actually eliminated, by the way.
Yep.
That being said, I love it. I love the fact that they're playing somewhat meaningful football this late in the season. It's great for them. I actually like I think the Ravens come out of this division somehow. And I think so too. They're just not a team I'd want to face. Lamar Jackson is interesting because Flacco sits, even though he's healthy, because there's not a lot of film on him, and he's young enough that he hasn't taken. He's like it's very Robert Griffin-ish to me. Who, by the way, happens to be on that team.
Yes, he is.
He's not beat up, right? He still has his body hasn't been smoked. They could easily. By the way, they had won last week against the Chiefs in what was an absolute incredible overtime game, I believe. Yeah, I'm overtime, right? They would be almost a lock. But if they can figure out a way to beat the Chargers, they're definitely a lock for the division, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to figure it would be really, really incredible if the Browns figured something out. But I agree with you. I think the Ravens got this down pat.
Yeah, well, the only problem the Ravens are going to run into is there's a ton of other teams that are there too. You know, the Colts, the Titans, the Dolphins are still hanging around with their miracle win at 7-6. The Chargers, even the Broncos, although they're probably out. So there's a lot of teams that are still right there that could swipe spots. It's very close. This week's going to do a lot for the rest of the year.
No, I totally agree. I mean, there's going to be a lot. The picture's going to be a lot clearer because there are teams that can clinch if they win. For instance, the Bears over in the NFC, they win the division if they beat the Packers. But who knows with what Aaron Rodgers is doing now without Mike McCarthy? Is he just going to say "fuck you" to the Bears like he always does? We can go back to Week 1. The Cowboys win the division with a win. If the Bears lose, both the Saints and the Rams can clinch first round rise with wins. And the Seahawks, if they win, they're in the playoffs. There's a ton there.
I'll leave you with this. The Saints head to Carolina. If the Saints can beat the divisional opponent, they haven't played yet, by the way. They play them this week. They play them 2 weeks from now.
That's insane.
I know. If they can beat the Panthers, I think the Panthers are out. I think they're eliminated from the playoff discussion. They'd be 6-8, and with a divisional game against the Falcons, and then out on the road in the Saints to end the year. Now the Saints may have clinched by then, but they may still be fighting for number 1 overall potentially. So we don't know. So
Carolina currently sits a half a game out, but I don't think this week would technically eliminate them, even if the Vikings win.
Yeah,
but
I just think between the Vikings and other teams, I just think a loss to the Saints at home will be too devastating for them to overcome.
Yeah, it'll be pretty tough. I mean, there's a lot of teams still in it.
Eagles would be the same way if they lose. And I think so we'll see. But by the way, I'd love to go back and listen to our podcast. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that I thought the Seahawks had the opportunity to be a playoff team this year. Love to dive back in.
I believe that.
So you got a lot of moxie up there in Seattle. That's a proud franchise that has done a really good job building that young defense from within and figuring out how to win on offense.
Yeah. I'm going to leave it with this. I think the AFC is wide open in terms of who's in the hunt for the 6th seed. I think the 6 teams that are currently in the playoffs right now, seeding might be a different question, but I think these 6 teams are your playoff teams in the NFC.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I would side with you there.
Yeah. I mean, Carolina is the only team that I think could do it, but they look terrible.
Yeah. No, yeah, I know. It's been a wild fall for them, an absolute wild fall.
So, really tough look.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for us this week. It's a quick pod. I'm going to the Sixers game tonight. It's going to be an interesting little battle because both Jimmy Butler and Mike Muscala out. Furkan Korkmaz starting. So hopefully they won, and I don't sound like it might be funny if they lost to hear me being all optimistic, but who knows? Matty D, anything else you got for me?
No, I mean this is we're coming down to the final stretch of the NFL, and then the bowl season
yeah.
will really start to pick up as we go through the next couple of weeks. So
Hell yeah. Keep
exciting.
an eye out for our bowl season group, by the way. I'm going to post that up on thunderblogsports.com. So join that.
Yeah.
Oh, beloved listeners. But that's going to do it for us, Matt. Thank you as always.
No problem. No problem. Looking forward to the weekend, and hey, go Sixers tonight.
Go Sixers, go Flyers. They're honoring Scott Hartnell next week, I saw. Go Phillies in winter meetings right now. Hopefully by the time we next speak, they'll have a new right fielder that likes to hit home runs at Citizens Bank Park. But I think, Matt, that's going to do it with us. Hopefully all of our optimism stays true. But for my man, Matty D, I am the G-Man. Thank you so much for listening as always. Make sure to tell your friends. Have a good weekend, everybody. And go Birds.